Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the CCA CST. Been lots of good impressions on this one lately, and since we are in the middle of the Chinese New Year celebration and not much going on AliExpress, I decided to kind of catch up on a couple things that were on the list that I never got to previously. So CCA CST is one of them. This is a 1DD from CCA. CCA is the sister company of KZ, so you can almost see it actually comes with these KZ Starline tips, wood wrapping on the shell. It is a hang down style with a non-removable cable as well. So not a whole lot going on there physically wise, but I picked this one up on Amazon, $12.99 from Top Sale. If you're interested, check them out. So, out of the box experience, bright, shrill. It's just not my thing. I shy away from things that are too bright. So, I see most people on forums talking about foam tips. I happen to use tape on this one, so if you actually look closely, there's a thin piece of micropore tape on mine. You need some mitigation strategy on the upper mids because it's pretty wicked and it's fatiguing, and I don't know what other people are doing, but tape works for me because it gives you like a 2 to 3 decibel drop, and that kind of worked for me. Foam tips probably works, maybe not as much, so you do have to plan for that. If you think you were going to use this one out of the box, I would reconsider that and think about some tips. So it's also a low volume listener for the same reason. It's really bright, and that brightness for me and for some other people, it really affects how loud you can listen to an IEM. And so sometimes I talk about higher volume things like the ASX and ASF were things that even the Believe was the same way. You had to really turn it up for it to come alive. This one's the opposite. If you turn it up, you'll get fatigued quite quickly. So do plan on that. Especially if you're a low volume listener, this one is probably right up your alley. So what does it sound like? It's a bit lean because of this brightness. It's a bit dry because there's not a lot of bass bleed into the mids. So it comes off a bit dry, and it's got this kind of big hump, this big boost on the mid bass and the upper mid. So it's still V-shaped, and it sort of prioritizes speed over the weight and body. There's not a whole lot of, it's a bit lean. There's not a lot of low-end body to it. The note weight isn't as heavy as I prefer, but some people really prefer a faster, lighter sound, and this is one of them. And for me, that combination it can become a little fatiguing after a while. So again, nice resolution because it's a very clean sound, but for me, it's sort of ruined on the back end by the decay. It's a weird sound. It's sort of a instruments and drums hit without reverberations. And on the front side, they actually sound pretty good, but on the back side, we're expecting to hear all these audio cues that make it sound realistic, sort of missing. So drums kind of fall flat, and so the new recent track, Nest, by the Portico Quartet, I guess they remixed their own song. And even right in the beginning, the drums kind of kick in, and there's this low end frequency rumble to it. It should be kind of a nice weighty low end in the background, and it just comes off a bit lightweight. And then you've got this brighter synth and the crashing cymbals, and the whole thing very much leans towards the kind of upper range sound as opposed to, because you're sort of missing the counterbalance to it on the back end. So it's got nice mid bass, but everything below that is a little lighter. So like I was saying, so the mid bass has a really nice level. It actually hits really hard. It's boosted quite a bit, and it punches hard, but it doesn't have that weight behind it. So drums sound a bit hollow, a bit shallow. It's a bit unsatisfying to me and unengaging, and that song, it's very much unengaging for that reason. Georgia Smith's Blue Lights, these Machiavelli sessions, I think another new recent tracks, So right in the beginning, the same thing. The strings are kind of soaring, and where you're expecting to have this low end body, this little rumble there, it's just lightweight, and it's a bit unsatisfying. So I like to have that counterbalance on the V shape where you have a nice boosted upper range and then kind of a matching lower range, which really gives you a satisfying deep weight to it. And this is just a lighter, faster sound. So just a difference. Some people prefer that. Not so much for me, but some people very much do prefer it and prefer the CST just for that reason. So the mids, like I was saying, it's a clean, lean sound. There's not much warmth at all. Detailed. And if you're looking for a full voice, if you're like a blonde BL03 fan, and you really like those rich, deep voices, that's not so much what you get here. It's a leaner, faster, lighter sound, especially in the mids. So the vocals are still quite close, quite intimate, not forward. But again, this little back end decay, reverberations, those are kind of missing. So where you should hear Georgia Smith's Blue Lights, this Machiavelli session, it's a really intimate recording, and it should sound like she is right there in your head. And your brain just doesn't believe it because you're missing a bunch of these audio cues. And so, sounds good. Her voice sounds really good on this set because it's not too low, so you don't feel like you're missing the low end, and it's not too high where it's fatiguing. It's kind of right there in the middle, so sounds really nice. But for me, it's just missing a little bit of that. Makes you feel like it's Georgia Smith singing as opposed to a reproduction of it or sound similar to it. It just doesn't quite hit that realism level for me. So the treble, fine with tape. Again, I'm not going to go too much into it because your results are going to vary a little bit depending on what you use for your mitigation strategy there. But expect them to be a little thin sometimes. Sometimes the cymbals get a little crashy and splashy, but I'm not going to nitpick that too much because that's going to very much depend on what you do on your tips. So the staging is actually really nice. There's some height, there's quite a bit of depth, but not as wide as I was expecting. And it's kind of an odd staging where I know people were really recommending this one over the EDX, and if you listen to them back to back, the staging, so this one goes a little deeper and this one is wider. This one you're not missing all of these decay details, and things sound a bit more real. But on this one you're getting higher resolution and maybe more detail on the front end. So it's really hard to pick between the two. It really comes down to a personal preference. One certainly isn't really any better than the other one. There's just different characteristics, and the staging I still prefer it on this one just because it's wider. And I will take something that's full width, almost ear to ear, than something that feels a little more cramped, but it goes back a little further. Just really a personal preference on that one, but it's kind of nice in either case. But if you're going to complain that the EDX is wide without any depth, then you're going to complain that this one is a little deeper but not as much width, and the width bothers me more than the lack of depth on the EDX. That's just me personally. So again, Georgia Smith's By Any Means, the other song on that Machiavelli session, there's a really nice depth to it, and she's kind of closer to you. That orchestra is back where they should be, but they sort of have this. The soundstage is sort of a wedge in front of you as opposed to going out to the sides beyond your ears, which is what I was expecting. So that's about it. Just a quick one on the CST. Some things to note. It's going to appeal. Some people are going to pick the EDX for certain reasons because they like something that's not as bright. They could use it out of the box because it's got some nice tips. It has a replaceable cable. CST's got a stronger upper range, possibly more detailed, a little more resolution. That's going to appeal to other people. A faster, lighter sound is going to appeal to other people. This is a bit slower, more laid back, has more low end. So, if you're a mid-bass fan, CST. If you want something that has got mid-bass but also has a deeper follow-through on the back end, EDX. So there's reasons to go with either one of them. And that's my take on it. So again, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you next time.